Hello there. I'm Pastor J. Dylan Proctor here with my Blue Healer buddy Count, and I want to talk to you about a very serious problem that has come up within how we interact with individuals within our neighborhoods and how we really navigate the world around us. With everything that has gone on, with the shutdowns and everything that's really a byproduct of the virus which shall not be named, and even beyond the virus itself, there are byproducts of worldly belief systems. There has been a very large movement to redefine how we interact with one another, and it's been very catastrophic. We really are in a battle of belief systems, and we have to realize that revival doesn't come when we have the right access to the world's table, the right access to politics, the right access to even leaders within our own denominations. It happens when churches on the local level, they understand the true calling of God, and they do the great works within that centrifugal movement, which is modeled by Christ, that starts with just a few people and it spreads out. You know, you find this modeled all throughout Scripture, that revival is not a matter of having the right access, but it is something where men and women step up to the plate and they want to truly live out the biblical worldview. And they want to preach it. They want to illuminate that the gospel is the only alternative to the sufferings of this world. Well, when we look at our world right now, we are in a desperate need for revival, but that has been complicated by the fact that the way that we network within our neighborhoods has been heavily devastated by recent events that have all cropped up this year. Now, they are not something which strictly only emerged this year, these problems that we have. They've really been coming and building and festering in Western civilization for quite some time. You see, there is this concept called a third place, which is neither your place of work, it's not your home, but it's this third place, which is neither work nor home, where you go and you voluntarily interact with other people. Now, throughout the history of humanity, this has been people who may be part of your family, maybe your extended family, maybe some cousins, but they might just be other people in your same geography, and you go there and you interact with them. People of all ages, people who may think a little different, but they're generally kind of the same, but they might have some different tastes, different interests, and they definitely would have a different perspective on the world, because that's how things go from one generation to the next. People tend to be rather rebellious from one another, but people would go to third places and they would be forced to negotiate and sort out life with one another, and it really would help to keep a lot of cohesion in society, but also it would keep neighborhoods well informed about the problems and the issues going on locally. There were needs and things that would go on down the street, and people would be well informed about them. Well, in our modern day and age, this has all but evaporated. For quite some time now, people have, rather than interacting in third places that are determined by geography, and you're kind of forced to deal with people of different generations, people you may not normally choose to interact with, people instead, they are interacting with people that they do choose to interact with. They self-select with great precision the sort of people they want to be around. You can go online, you can have forums, people they can drive further than we can normally, people, and they go and they very finely tune their surroundings to the point where they're really only surrounded by people who think exactly like them. They create little echo chambers. This is very destructive for a culture. It's not how God designed us to be. When you go all the way back to Adam and Eve, family is the first institution given to mankind, and men and women, they are designed to be in this small society. And the family, of course, is the most compact form of society. And every layer of society, you go further away from that. You go to the neighborhood, you go to the broader nation, you go even throughout the world. Things lose a lot of intimacy the more layers you get away from the family. And the neighborhood right around your own household, that is a place where we were supposed to interact with others and negotiate and learn how to sort out life. Well, one of the realizations that I've had this week was that the breakdown that we've had in society, I do think this is going to have lasting impacts. And by that I mean there is no standard by which things would return to a sort of normality that they had before all of this. Because what is guiding our conversations right now is not any interest in truth. It's not an interest in living out the biblical worldview and biblical wisdom. We've thrown a lot of that away. And we really are living in a time where people are not interested in negotiating with one another as much as they are interested in virtue signaling, getting approval online, and things of that nature, which is all very destructive. But we in the church, we have to realize revival starts with us locally. And this realization I had earlier this week came when I was talking with the local Civitan and how their normal avenues that they tap into to meet needs in the community, they had all been taken away, essentially forcibly taken away. And I myself, as a pastor, I've known for a while now, I can't go to Dairy Queen, I can't go to the different restaurants, the different storefronts and places that used to be third places that people would congregate. Even though they're not the third places of old, there's still some remnant of that. All of those have been stripped away. The local store that's down the street from my house, it has been permanently closed. It will not be reopening. And that is a story that is found all throughout America right now. And this is so enormously devastating because this is not how God designed us to be. Within this last week, I've seen instances where children, they're even not just disturbed of strangers who are adults, which is sometimes a good thing, and quite often it is a good thing. You don't want your kids to, stranger danger. It's a good policy. But children being disturbed of even being around other children, worried they might get sick, worried they might contaminate one another. Sort of this hyper-ized version of germophobia, something like that. Aversion to germs. And, that's not at all who God designed us to be. And there's going to be long-term consequences to this. Early on, the church kind of ceded our role, and the church in large ceded the role that said, we'll listen to the worldly experts. Even if the worldly experts are flip-flopping, we're not going to pretend like you can hold them accountable to what they said last week. But whatever they said this week, we'll act like that's the first thing out of their mouth. No weighing of fruits. It's all fine and glorious. We'll just do church from home. The precedent of that was bad. And myself and several other pastors I knew said this is not going to be like 9/11, where after the Twin Towers fell, there were rushings into the church, simply because we allowed the precedent to be set that the church was not something which one needed to go to, that you could do it from home. Even within the church, there are people who entertained the language of essential and non-essential, and that is so devastating. We've been cut off from interaction where we find out where the needs are. We know suicides are up. We know that there are people who have issues with jobs. We know there are businesses that are really in a financial bind right now. And we also know that there's an absence of meaning, where people aren't doing meaningful things. They've just kind of been sitting at home watching Tiger King, which is not what God designed us to do. These problems are going to have a lasting impact, and we as the church, we have to address this. We're going to have to open our eyes, and we're going to have to go out into the world, even though it's going to make some people mad. They're going to accuse us of things, which again, who cares about accusations? That's one of the chief tactics of Satan himself, who is the grand accuser, is to just accuse willy-nilly. We have to not be afraid. We have to stop being afraid of what people are going to say about us, stop being afraid of a real virus, and realize that God calls us to a deeper meaning beyond just the pettiness that is thrown at us. We're going to have to start asserting the biblical worldview based on principles, and we are going to have to find, perhaps old, maybe you could say exhuming the old ways that we network with one another, but we're going to have to rediscover those and use them as the means for revival, because that is the only pathway forwards if there's to be any restoration in our nation. It's going to come from the ground up. It's not going to come from the top down. We need to stop outsourcing our courage. And when people that are experts and leaders say, oh, you don't need to be the hero for this or that, hogwash. That's a lie from hell to keep people from having revival. Time and time again, we have seen how our institutions have been infected with a mentality that is not interested in righteous accountability. It will tolerate the bearing of false witness. It will tolerate all sorts of awful, awful things. We're going to have to, from the grassroots up, start bringing revival in our nation. And so on that note, I know it's a little dark. Me and Count out here, we're doing our nightly drive. It's actually not as dark as it appears to be in the video, I would imagine, just knowing how the stuff works with the camera. But regardless, God love you, and have a blessed day.